now we're going to turn our attention to the next segment of our proceedings, which will focus on an actual use case of real-world asset tokenization in real estate. So I'd like to welcome our moderator, Kim Diamond. Kim is a former senior managing director from S&P Global, where she spent over 20 years. She was also the co-founder of Kroll Bond Rating Agency, and nowadays she is an adjunct professor at New York University's Real Estate School and is a co-founder of Greatex, which is a global income digital asset platform with capital protection backed by real estate. We also have Lakshmi Narayanan, who is the chairman of Sovereign Wealth Fund Institute and managing partner of Patel Family Office. I think Kim and Lakshmi will forgive me for providing a slightly longer introduction to the third speaker, William Chip Rogers. William served as state senator in the Georgia Assembly, including as majority leader for 2 terms. He held the position of president and CEO of the Asian American Hotel Owners Association and president and CEO of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. Between these 2 organizations, they represent more than 90% of all hotel owners across the US. So if we can invite on stage our 3 guests.
The common thread among the 3 of us is that we all come from the traditional finance space, more specifically commercial real estate. So I'm really interested in having this conversation about bridging TradFi and DeFi in the context of real estate, more specifically the hotel segment. To kick things off, I'm going to ask both of you a personal question. Is that okay? Okay, Chip, I'm going to start with you. Do you own Bitcoin? And if the answer is yes, when did you first invest in it and what made you do that?
Since you sent me these questions last night, if I didn't, I would have purchased some last night before I got here. But the truth is, yes, I actually went back and looked when I first bought it because I still have it. And it was January of 2018, and it was at $12,000. As most of you know, by December of 2018, it was at $4,000. So that was a rough year, but I held on to it and it's done quite well since. So yes, definitely have Bitcoin.
Awesome. Lakshmi, how about you?
Yeah, it's a long story. In 2012, I was approached by a friend who was in a Forex trading. Actually, in 2013, he told about a story, what's happening. He came across a product called Bitcoin and he uses a technology called blockchain. And he said it was $5 in 2012. Those days I was living in India. $5 is $5 US. Those days, dollar to Indian currency was 40 Indian rupees. Still, it was a big money. In an Indian context, it's a 200 rupees. It's a big money. So he said he bought it for $5. And he said in a 1 year, it has become $150 in 2013. So 30 multiples. And he said he doesn't know more about it. But only one thing is there's a lot of market, whoever he's dealing with in the Forex market, people are saying it will become $1,000 or there's a potential it can become even $2,000. So I was curious. Simple, it's a 30 multiples in 1 year. I thought I will take a little dip. That's what my whole idea at that time, nothing beyond than that. But also I was digging deep to understand. So one thing that triggered me at that time, what made it to buy is, it can't be duplicated, replicated. They said there's nothing called duplicate Bitcoin. That's what made me to get curious. Because in those days, when you walk into Indian banking system, when you're withdrawing money from the teller in the banks, there's a board in the front of the bank, inside the bank, in the teller counter, there's a board. Please check the currencies and please check the number of currencies also. Even the banks, they say, don't trust us indirectly. And there is a possibility there can be duplicate notes, and there's a possibility the notes can be torn or note can be anything. So I thought, look, if the bank's financial institution says that, but somebody says there's a product that it can't be duplicated. So there should be something unique. So I still remember the date. It was August 15th, an Indian Independence Day of 2013. I bought it for $98.33. But those days, you don't have Coinbase, you don't have Binance, you don't have these platforms. You know, there were a lot of, I would say, completely fragmented market. It's very difficult. You pay a little bit more money to buy them. And sitting in India, it's very complicated those days. That's how I started my thing. But in that same year, on 2013, it went up to $750. And then it took 3 years. 3 years, it was a bad year, 2014, 15. It came back to end of 2016, once again to $750. Early 2017, $1,000. But this year is a very, very critical year. Very, very critical year. So I come from an economic background. So we always look for triggers. And those triggers what made us to look at something very, very interesting. 2014, China banned Bitcoin. In 2014, Microsoft announced you can buy Xbox using Bitcoin. In 2014, IRS of US said Bitcoin is a property. In 2014, 3 countries, Swiss, European Union, and Japan, recognized Bitcoin as a currency. So my thought process was, what will trigger a country like China to ban? Why will an IRS department of US suddenly wake up and say Bitcoin is a property? If it's such something traded in some part of the world, why should they worry about it? Is it something a large volcano erupting that we are not seeing it, or something the regulators and the governments are started to seeing that one? That made me to hold for a long time.
Okay, all right. So we've established that you both believe in the digital asset ecosystem to some degree or another, right? Okay.
His story is a lot better than mine.
And a lot longer. So we've all heard that the Trump administration, it strongly supports digital assets, to the extent even that they've said they want to make America the cryptocurrency capital of the world. Chip, given your experience in politics, working with multiple administrations and policymakers, what have you seen, at the state and federal levels relative to adopting or passing laws in this space?
Yeah, a lot here. This answer is going to be a little bit longer. So there are 23 states just this year that introduced legislation in and around this. So almost half the states just during 2015. Keep in mind that most state legislatures are part-time. And so for it to all be introduced this year is pretty amazing. I don't know if any of that will get passed, but if you look at kind of the underlying theme of almost every one of those bills, it is how is the state itself going to invest a portion of its reserve into a digital currency. And so that seems to be the common trend. I think if you layer on top of that, you start looking at highly regulated states that seem to mess up everything, like California and New York, and then low regulation states that seem to do extremely well in almost everything, like Texas and Florida, taking different approaches. And that is one saying, we want a robust marketplace. The other one saying, oh, we're worried about this, so let's just regulate it. I'm very scared of any state getting involved in this too much beyond just having it as a currency. There can be policies which encourage it, which encourage private ownership of it, and making things easier. But ultimately, with currency, there's got to be a federal plan. Now, I have been very fortunate in my life to have spent some time with Donald Trump, and I will tell you that President Trump, one of the more previous speakers of the House, I'm not going to tell you who it was because he told me this in confidence. He said, look, Trump will sometimes get it right and sometimes get it wrong, and you really don't know where he's going. But one thing you can count on is he has really good instincts. He may not know exactly specifically what he's talking about, but he has good instincts. And so when you go to someone like President Trump, as Mr. Musk does, as David Sachs has done, and said, look, the U.S. has a chance to be the world leader in this, that is something that excites him because he wants to get credit for it, and he wants to say, we're the best in the world at it. And if you can convince him of those two things, he's going to jump all over. And I think that's exactly what you've seen here in the last administration, where things moved very, very, very slowly on everything, which is not a bad thing if you don't want to be overregulated. They looked at this as a problem, like, oh, we don't really understand this. We haven't figured out how we're going to overregulate it yet. And so they were kind of adverse to it, but they didn't really know why they were adverse to it. Trump doesn't really understand it. I'm convinced of that. But I think he does understand that there's an opportunity to putting the smartest people around him and being the world leader in this, and having, again, the US dollar tied to it. That interests him a lot. And you've seen the actions he's taken just over the first few weeks of his administration to say, we're fully embracing this. The second thing I'll say, too, is that, and I think this drew an enormous distinction between the two candidates in the last election, well, three candidates, first President Biden, then Kamala Harris, was that Trump looked like the younger guy because he got it, right? Now, I don't know how much influence his son had on him with that, or Elon or anybody else, but somebody got to him and said, look, you can get a larger market share of the younger vote by doing these things. And it really made, I mean, especially on this issue, Kamala almost looked like the old stodgy person that didn't get it, and Trump looked like the young hip guy that kind of understood it. I don't know if he understood it, but he embraced the idea, and I think it helped him a lot in the election.
Yep. Okay, Lakshmi, I loved your story, but I want to know the punchline. How much Bitcoin do you own? See, he's not going to answer the question, right? So I doubt you're going to give me the information.
We have regulators in the room.
About your
We have regulators. We have all type of people. We have people from the government side in the room.
Okay. So no chance you're going to tell me what your private key is, huh?
No. I don't remember.
Hey, I tried. No, seriously though. What is the connection between a traditional family office and digital assets? Are you doing more than just investing in this space? What are your goals?
So we have been an investor for long enough now, but we are also now transitioning. We are an early adopters. We try to adopt. We are a traditional family office. We always look for opportunities, and we try to adopt with that opportunities. That's what we do. So one of the things, the way how we position ourselves, we are a mission-oriented family office. We try to identify a larger problem and then try to solve the problem, if at all we want to be in operations. Most of the time, we are just a passive investor. We find opportunities, invest, and look for great returns. That's what it is. Wherever we look for beyond returns, we try to see a global problem and identify and try to solve it. So one of the problems that we would like to solve is a global income problem. We believe everything has been disrupted. Like Uber has created a global taxi service. Airbnb has created a bread and breakfast globally using technology. Every industry has got disrupted. So there's an opportunity to disrupt the financial industry. How do we create a global income? Somebody sitting anywhere in the world can have an accessibility to a US dollar income. So that is triggered down to us. Now we are looking of tokenizing real world assets. We want to enable people to own, earn, trade hotel rooms,
okay,
or any type of real estate assets in a click of a button that can enable them to own global income as a platform.
And that makes sense given that the Patel family office is a third generation hotel family. Okay, hold that thought for a minute. We're going to come back to you. And I won't ask you about your Bitcoin. Chip, given your extensive experience in the hospitality industry, do you believe that the hospitality industry will embrace digital asset transformation? And also, if you could talk a little bit about the brands and what you think they're going to think of all of this.
Yes, I think they will. And the brands will be the driver, but I think it's really important for those who aren't intimately knowledgeable about the hotel industry to understand really how it works. At least in the United States, it works this way. There are three legs to this stool. There's the brand, there's the owner, and then there's a management company. And they're all somewhat self-explanatory. Most people think, even lawmakers that I work with, and now my day job is convincing lawmakers to pass the right policy. I lobby, I advise, and all those things. But you'd be surprised how many of them think that every Marriott hotel is owned by Marriott. 99% of Marriott hotels are not owned by Marriott. They're owned by an individual owner, right? But the beauty of something like this is that the brand creates brand standards. Now, it drives owners crazy, but that's why you have these iconic brands, because whether you check into Marriott in Cleveland, Ohio, or in London, England, you understand what that means, what the Marriott brand means, where they are on the chain scale. You have an expectation because they're all supposed to be the same. The only way that can happen is with brand standards. So when you get a Marriott or a Hilton, two of the most recognizable and respected names globally, when you get those brands to say, okay, now the new standard is this, you're going to accept this type of payment, it happens instantly. And so I think we're probably on the precipice of that for two reasons. One is that there's two things brands always want to do more of: get a larger market share. This actually goes back to my comments on President Trump a moment ago. Brands want to be seen expanding their marketplace. And if they begin offering this as a way to pay, but also promoting it as saying, look, we are on the cutting edge of technology, that puts them in a different place. They are hypersensitive at all times about their reputation, right? That's part of being a brand. They don't own the asset. So what do they have? They have their reputation. Getting into this space, which I think they will in a large way very soon, helps on the market share side. The other side of that they have to be concerned about, keeping their owners happy, is the cost side of it. And this is a much lower cost of transaction than the way they currently process payments right now. It's a better form of transaction. So it's really a win-win for them. They get the better reputation, larger market share if they embrace it properly. And at the same time, they're able to pass along savings to their owners and keep those brand owners happy.
It's great. So Lakshmi, it sounds like the industry will be accepting of this, right? Given that they're open to innovation. So let's dig a little deeper. What exactly are you tokenizing?
So we are not tokenizing. So there are common things. Let me rephrase this for a moment. There are common things. People say they're tokenizing a debt of a organization, or they tokenize an equity of an organization where the asset is owned by them, or they tokenize a fund in turn where somebody can, it's a blind pool fund, raising money, syndicating money to buy properties or anything. These are the common things. They are trying to find an alternative mechanism to the funding mechanism. So what we want is, we want to create, as I said, we want to create solve one problem, is global income. We also want to see, is there is a way that we can do it with a capital protection. One of the unique nature of, if you look at the stable coin, is the stable coin initially started just as a transaction medium. Now stable coin has become a global asset. People can accept stable coin around the world beyond, because they would like to, wherever they can't hold US dollar, they can easily hold stable coins, because stable coins are in turn backed by US dollars, either dollar to dollar pegging or US treasury bond or stable tokens. So that's a uniqueness. So where we are looking is, we want to build an alternative use case. How can somebody use a stable coin or a stable token and stake against economic value of the real estate? So it's a unique structure. It's a capital protected global income platform is what we are building.
It's fascinating. So why hotel assets?
Chip said very, very beautifully. But in our mechanism, it's a very simple. It's a dynamic asset class. If you look at all the commercial real estate, if you choose the location right, brand right, manage property very well, if you know how to manage the capex of the properties, cash on cash, cash flow generating, it can generate even a 15% to 30% return on cash. So high cash flow generating, good appreciation value, high profitability business, and it's an aspiration for people around the world to own a hotel.
So let me ask.
Could I just add to that for a second? Because this is something that I don't actually think this is a good trend, but at least in the United States, we're moving away from the consumer is all about renting cars, renting their video service. And so there's ownership underneath that, right? But it has created this mobility that hotels can take advantage of and have begun to take advantage of. First, they can reprice every day. That's incredibly important, especially in high inflationary periods. Being able to reprice every day is especially important. But you have an American society that people move around and they work in different places. This idea of remote work, which was, only 6 years ago, you knew a few people that did it. Now you know virtually everybody does it in some capacity. Hotels have been enormous benefactors of that because you can work from a hotel room. And so that really matters. So this idea of being able to invest in hotels as a way to support the way people live, not just the way that people vacation, but the way people actually live, is much different than it was back in 2019.
And do you believe there's an appetite for fractional ownership?
Well, there clearly is. I mean, think about fractional ownership. You have it cars, boats. I have a friend, you're going to laugh about this. I have a friend, he's actually a member of U.S. Congress. I'm not going to tell you because he might lose votes over this. He has fractional ownership in a cow because he wants raw milk, and he didn't want the whole cow because it produces they can't drink that much every day. So he bought part of a cow. And so this fractional ownership and everything. And look, the timeshare industry started in hotels and resorts in Hawaii in 1974. Now it's had some bumps in the road, but in where we are today compared to 1974 is dramatically different. And so I think clearly the time of fractional ownership has come, but you almost have that anyway. If you think about the way hotel ownership exists today, again, I mentioned a moment ago, Marriott hotels, 98% are owned by somebody other than Marriott. Well, who owns those hotels? Very few is a single owner that owns a single asset. There are a multitude of partnerships. I ran an organization called AHOA. Some of you here are familiar with it. It's the Indian American community, which owns over half of the hotels in the United States. If you were to sit down with any AHOA member and say, well, what hotels do you own? Well, they'll say like, well, I own this hotel with 6 of my cousins. I own part of that hotel with 4 of my brothers. I mean, that is commonplace. It is a web you could never untangle, but it is fractional ownership in and of itself. And that is the way that hotel ownership exists today and can become more so by taking these taking the policies that exist in fractional ownership of cars and yachts and even cows and applying it to hotels.
So with that thought in mind, I know you're starting with hotels, and I think it's clear from everything that's been said why that makes a lot of sense. But what precludes you from doing this with other asset classes? And do you plan on doing this with other asset classes?
We intend to go in other asset classes, but hotel is an easiest way to create transparency. People sitting anywhere in the world, they can do a Google search on the rating, Travelpedia, Expedia. They can discover the property. They can physically go and verify the property. If I put a multifamily, they cannot just walk into a property and say, I want to stay here because I want a piece of it. So this isn't very easy. So it's very easy, transparent mechanism. It's all about adoption. We believe a hotel can be an easiest adoption asset class. That's why we have taken hotels.
Makes sense. Chip, we're getting close to the end here. So what would you say is one of the biggest challenges in the hotel industry, the one problem that if solved could revolutionize the sector?
Revolutionizing, that's tough. Let me just say the long-term problem, and this is something in my day-to-day job when I ran the 2 largest associations for hotels in the country, is labor. There's just not enough people to work in hotels. And that is a huge problem. So any tool, even any technology that can reduce that by nature must be adopted, because this is a problem that existed before COVID. It's certainly a problem that existed throughout COVID, and it's a problem that exists still today. But in the short term, it is the cost of capital. If you look at hotel transactions first of all, 2023 was a really bad year in hotel transactions. 2024 was 40% worse. Hotels are not trading. Cost of capital is just simply too much right now, and that's just not happening. I think once those numbers get down a little bit, back to the 5% range, I think you're going to see a flood of transactions happen, but it's not happening right now. That's an enormous problem, because you need that turnover, because that's what keeps the industry very healthy, is bringing in that new owner that says, I'm going to take this asset and make it better. No one ever bought an asset and says, I want to make it worse. So they're buying the asset to make it better, and that is a healthy turnover in the industry.
So Lakshmi, you focused a lot on the benefits of what you're doing for the ultimate, investors. But clearly, given what Chip just said, by bringing more investors into the space, you're also helping the hotel owners,
Yeah,
right?
the idea is to open up the American asset to the global investors community.
Yep.
So that means the global investors' capital coming in to the American asset classes will automatically become a competitive capital. I can't make the word called cheap, but I can strongly say there's a huge appetite for a global audience towards an aspiration to own an American asset. As long as the principal is protected, they'll love it.
Okay, so a related question, if you had to identify the one major challenge in the widespread adoption of digital assets in the real estate space and beyond, what would that be?
People don't transact money. People transact trust. Bottom line, everything boils down to trust. One of the important aspects in the digital asset world today that everybody is struggling to establish trust. Institutions are coming in to establish trust. Regulators are coming in to establish trust. The policies and governments are talking about building the trust. And we believe we are in the tip of that one. It's a tip of the iceberg. It's the moment the trust is established, I strongly believe we can expect a wildfire of adoption.
Okay, so speaking about trust, Lakshmi, you and I have been working together for a very long time. Do you trust me?
No. Answers reserved.
So I can ask you how much Bitcoin you have?
I know where you are coming from.
That's the benefit of working together for a long time, that anticipation. So that's it. We're going to wrap on that note. But thank you so much for your attention, and thank you to the panelists. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Chip, I just want to say a special thank you from Patel Family Office for having you here today. It's a delight. You truly are a guru in the hospitality industry and one of our favorites. Thank you again.